Alright guys, so generally speaking, nutritionists don't like to use the term superfood because it kind of is a little bit food shamey, and it implies that certain foods have magical powers, and that we shouldn't necessarily be using foods, talk about foods in that particular way. But I'm going to make an exception here, and that is when it comes to oatmeal. And the reason why I like oatmeal is because it can have a very high satiety factor. That is the how much the food makes you feel full and stay full for a long period of time. So it actually gives you quite a bit of energy, especially if you do it right. And it also, the type of fiber that's in oatmeal, actually, for one, it's going to help you poop. The second thing about it is that it will bind to the cholesterol in your stomach that your body, or the bile in your stomach, which is made from cholesterol, and it carries it out of your body. And when it does that, your body has to replace that, and it uses bad cholesterol from your bloodstream to replace the cholesterol that came out. Now, there are studies that have come out and kind of implied that the cholesterol that we find in our bloodstream generally comes more from saturated fats and inflammation in the liver, rather than necessarily from dietary cholesterol, which is one of the reasons why they keep going back and forth on eggs, and why eggs are generally considered okay these days. Although not the FDA, the American Heart Association recommends up to 5 eggs per week. Generally speaking, I think if you're going up to 2 eggs a day, you're probably fine. I would not necessarily be going for the 3-egg omelet every day, because that's a little bit excessive. So it just depends. So let's go ahead and get into it, because so I'm thinking we're going to be doing about 3 cups of uncooked oats. I don't want this to be sitting in the fridge for too terribly long, right? Because it goes bad eventually. Now, if Jet was making this, he'd be throwing chia seeds in it. So you could use chia seeds, you could be using basil seeds or anything like that. I'm not a huge fan of them, but throw in what you like. And that's kind of the point of this whole video, is we throw in what we like in order to increase the pleasure index, so we actually want to eat it in the morning, but also to increase the nutritional value of it. So I'm using 2% milk in this, and so I put in 3 cups here. So I usually like to go 1.5 to 1 3/4 wet to dry. So if I put in 3 cups here, then I'm going to be looking at about 4.5 to 5 cups of milk that I'm going to be putting in here. And this would be a whole lot faster if I was using that wet measure right there. It is generally recommended that you go basically 2 cups per dry, but I find that it works better at that 1.5 to 1 3/4 range. So I'm going to just go ahead and throw this up onto a medium, and a lot of times people will put a lid on it and just forget about it, but you usually get a layer of burnt oatmeal at the bottom, and also the softness will not be consistent all the way up. Now I'm just using regular oats here, and I know that a lot of people are concerned about the pesticide, and it's just completely out of my brain right now, but Roundup basically being in glyphosate, there we go, being in oats. So I actually buy oats that have it written on the label that they are glyphosate free. So now we're going to talk about, first of all, what else I put in my oats. These are walnuts. I put those in the morning, just like about 1/4 cup, like a small handful. I crunch them up and drop them in. You can do almonds, because those are a great brain food, just like the walnuts are. You can do pecans if you've got kidney stone issues or things like that, like I do. Pecans are a low oxalate nut. You can do macadamias. It really doesn't matter. You can't really go wrong as far as what kind of nuts that you throw in there. There is some stuff going on about, I've heard things about cashews specifically, that they don't break down well, and so if you have stomach issues or you're eating a lot of cashews, that could be problematic in the long run. But generally speaking, a serving of nuts is going to be about 1/4 cup, so you shouldn't really be having an entire tin of nuts, otherwise you're going to put on weight. If you don't want to do the fresh nuts, you can always do a nut butter. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is going to be a lemon curd, and I'm going to go ahead ahead and put 1 cup of water into my wet measure here. Yes, I'm going to use a wet measure this time because I am just horribly inconsistent. Bump, bump. Okay, so I'm putting 1 cup of water in here, and I'm going to go ahead and throw that in here and turn on my heat. And I'm going to bring this up to about a high. And I'm not going to worry too much about remembering what the fuck I was going to say. Oh my god, my brain is just dead today. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and measure out 1 cup of lemon juice. I like this brand of lemon juice that started getting me on it. This is the Santa Cruz. It just comes in a glass jar. It's higher quality than the generics ones that you find in the grocery store. It actually has more of that kind of bitter pith flavor to it. And so, I got that going. And now, I'm going to use Terabino sugar. You don't have to use Terabino sugar. You can use white sugar, but I like the richness from the molasses. Terabino is also an unprocessed sugar. So that's going to add a nice richness to this lemon curd. Now, yes, I am making a lemon curd. Yes, it has a lot of sugar to it, but I'm not going to be using all that in every single cup of my, or using this shit ton of lemon curd in my oatmeal. So it's just enough to kind of just make it more palatable for me. The other thing I throw in there is like going to be berries, strawberries. I used to, when I could still eat apples, I would throw apples in there as well. Now I'm intolerant to eggs, so I can't thicken this with eggs alone. And the reason why I've got my lemon juice off the side right here while I'm heating up the, basically just making a syrup over there, I'm going to be putting my cornstarch into my lemon juice here, and I'm going to mix that up, and I'm going to bring this up to heat first so I have less distance that I have to go with the cornstarch and the lemon juice, so I don't create that bitterness or lose some of that or lemon flavor, but I'm also not going to scorch anything because I'm not adding the lemon curd too early. And now I'm going to add about 1.5 tablespoons of butter, and I can probably put a little bit into, like, this is like a teaspoon, into my oats. Alright. Put that away. Put my lemon juice away. So, to be honest with you, I don't remember the ratios that I usually put into this lemon curd. And it's going to be different because of the different sugars that I use. I put in, like, sorry, I did this a little bit off camera, just around 2 tablespoons. And I'm not even really measuring. This is literally a tablespoon, not even a measuring spoon, for my cornstarch, because it's really just going to be there as a thickener. If I wanted to do this as a real traditional lemon curd, what I would do is I'd actually separate out 3 eggs, just crack the egg in half, pass it back and forth, try to capture the yolk till all the white falls out, and then I'd be throwing that in here, right? And I'd be stirring that up and breaking the egg apart because I don't want it to be breaking apart in here. So I'm going to bring this up to temperature, and then I will be dumping my egg or cornstarch and or cornstarch mix into here when it starts getting to a hotter heat so that I don't get that coagulation, and then I'm going to start whisking like crazy. I do have my white sugar here because that's going to be easier to adjust the flavor with than the Terabino sugar because of the heavy molasses content. And if you want to kind of balance out the flavor, I'm going to be putting, well, just a tiny bit of salt in here for both. I don't like to add a lot of salt. A chef would probably look at me and be like, oh my god, why don't you season your goddamn food? And again, I've had kidney stones, that's why. Alright, I'm going to make sure that this isn't burning. Let's get a longer handled spoon so I don't have to worry about it as much. Yeah, I can already feel that I'm starting to scorch a little bit to the bottom here. And look, we're already starting to boil over here, so I need to start whisking that too. I'm glad, because I thought that this would be a very long video waiting for that to boil. Alright, I've got that going there. I'm going to steal this whisk right here to kind of make sure that we're not caramelizing the sugar to the bottom of the pan. And let's just go ahead and get that into a little bit more of a rolling boil before we add the rest of our mix here. And at the very end, because I am prissy, I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla to this. I have like good Mexican vanilla, but whatever. I've got Costco vanilla extract. I don't like to use the imitation vanilla flavor because that is, you know, basically comes from the glands of beavers. So let's not do that. Anal glands, for that matter. All right, we're starting to boil here again. That's fantastic. I'm going to reduce this heat down here. And really, I'm not like trying to get the oatmeal to necessarily boil. I just really want it to thicken. That's all I'm looking for. Now I'm going to go ahead and drop my cornstarch and lemon juice mix in and whisk like crazy. And then in a moment, I'm going to go ahead and taste this. And I want to taste it when it's starting to thicken. It's okay to kind of add sugar later. If you wanted to have a rich simple syrup on the side to kind of adjust flavor, you can do that too. And the thing about this is not really a huge batch. I've only used 1 cup, 1 cup, and 1 cup. Like I've done even distribution of my liquids and solids. Because what you're going to find is that 2-3 days away, this is going to start to separate. You're going to get kind of this jelly and whatnot. So this is not like, you know, something that's going to stay really great for a long period of time. Same thing's going to be true with this oatmeal. If you were just cooking for yourself, I might go down by 1/3, right, of what I've done here. So I did 3 cups of oatmeal here. I might do 2 cups if it was just myself, but Jet's going to be eating this as well. So, we're coming back to the boil now. It's funny because I don't even think of this particular stove as being particularly fast. So once this kind of starts to boil a little bit more, you're going to start seeing like little solid bits coming up here. And if I had eggs in here right now, I would definitely want to be whisking that like crazy. And I don't think I mentioned this. It's 3 egg yolks for a proper lemon curd. But again, we're doing a vegan version just because I can't tolerate the eggs. Okay, now we are boiling. And now I'm going to be kind of judging it and saying, okay, is it quite getting to the thickness that I want it to? And it really should start becoming more solid here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat down, and I see that it's kind of got a little bit more of a syrupy texture to it. So I'm going to add another, a little bit smaller than a tablespoon this time, of my cornstarch, and just enough water. And this has to be cold water, right? This is a common mistake that people make when they're working with cornstarch, is that they will use hot water, and a hot way. And what will happen is it'll clump and it won't actually thicken things. So this is actually a very important thing. Same thing with flour. If you're adding flour to a gravy or something like that, really important. Another thing that I will do, and I didn't do it today because I didn't go outside because I'm lazy, is I would drop in a sprig of rosemary and give it a nice aromatic. There we go. We're starting to thicken up a little bit, and now we're going to give this a little try. So it's still a little bit on the thin side, but actually that's got a very nice balance to it. I was worried that it might be a little bit too tart. It is pretty tart, but it's actually about where I like it. I might add a little bit of simple to it. My main thing here is I'm still kind of feeling like it's not as thick as I want it to be, and since it is boiling, I know that it's already starting to come together. So, and it's kind of the thing. So maybe 4 tablespoons of cornstarch will be enough for this. I usually feel like I usually get okay with 3. So, and I'm being very careful that I'm not adding a lot of water content to this, right? You see that I'm just barely adding any water to this, right? Because I don't want to, you know, be fighting the fact that I'm diluting it along with adding my cornstarch. And I think that's probably going to be the last time I do that. I'm going to bring this back up to medium so I get a little bit more of a rolling boil going. And that should thicken up really nicely now. I guess while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and make this kind of note here, is that sometimes when you do, if you don't whisk it enough, like if you're making a hollandaise sauce or something like that and things start to coagulate, after you've finished it, don't worry about it too much in the moment. Like, still whisk it like crazy, but if it's just really not coming together, throw it in the blender when you're done. Make sure that it's cooled down first, because if you put it in the blender when it's still hot, all the air in that blender is going to expand. It's going to blow the lid off the blender, and then you're going to get covered head to toe in freaking hot sauce, and that's going to definitely burn you. So this is looking pretty good now. This is looking pretty good now. So going back to the very beginning, what's going to be kind of happening here, I'm going to go ahead and measure with my heart when it comes to the vanilla. All right. Don't need any measuring spoon for that. Garlic, vanilla, onions, that kind of thing, measure from your heart. All right, so what this is going to look like is that I like to put the lemon curd in my bowl. If it's like that day, I'll put it on the bottom because it'll kind of distribute a little more evenly throughout rather than scooping it on top. But I actually like the temperature difference between the cold lemon curd on hot oatmeal. So I'll usually microwave my oatmeal for a couple minutes, get it nice and warm, stir it up a bit before I dump my lemon curd on top. So I got that like temperature difference in there. It can be really nice with a little bit of nuts on top. Probably about 3 or 4 large strawberries that I'll chop in there. Sometimes the way that I learned this was to put in dried cranberries. It's not going to give you quite the same nutritional profile as doing fresh fruit. And if you like raspberries because you like the tartness better, throw in raspberries, throw in blueberries. It doesn't really matter what kind of fruit you throw in there, except for kiwis. Do not, I repeat, do not put fucking kiwis in there. It'll be bitter as fuck. I don't know why. They just do not work. But that's it. Lemon curd oatmeal. Breakfast of champions.